I think the ability and the opportunity to serve your fellow man and serve your country is something that everyone should look for and try to find what niche they might fall into so they can do that. It doesn't have to be flying, it doesn't have to be combat, it doesn't have to be the military, but something where you can serve your fellow man, policemen, firemen, volunteer work. All of these things are beneficial to just mankind as a whole. I'm Phillip Lee Carson. I've served about 27 years in the Air Force, most of it as a fighter pilot. Flew a number of different airplanes, but it was the best job ever. Well, it wasn't a family tradition at all. When I got out of college, I majored in mathematics. And I thought, well, mathematics in space was just coming up, the space industry. And I thought, I'll get into the space program. And so I went, my first assignment in the Air Force was in the Atlas missile program. And I realized that's not what I wanted to do. So my boss one day said, hey, would you like to go up for a flight in one of the military airplanes? I said, sure. So we went up and flew around, and he said, you know, if you're going to be in the Air Force, it's Air Force, you ought to be on the first team. And that's the air. So he said, well, you ought to apply for pilot training. And I did. And I found I really fit in well with being a pilot. And the rest, I guess, is history. Probably when my lead, Mr. Dale Cecil, or he's Captain Dale Cecil, we were down in the southern tip of Vietnam. And we just completed our ordnance delivery at the target. And I remember exactly what he said. He said, Phil, I'm hit, I'm getting out. And so I said, Dale? And he had already ejected from the airplane. So it was low clouds, and I had to circle around then to try to find him. And I saw the parachute down on the ground. And so I went over ahead. We always carried an emergency radio with us. So he made contact with me. And he said, he was out in the middle of a rice paddy. He said, Phil, I think I broke my leg. And he said, and the VC are coming out of the trenches over here by the canal. And they were probably 100, 150 yards from him. And he said, they're coming and they're shooting at me. And so I said, keep your head down. So I rolled in, I had 20 millimeter bullets. And I came in and strafed very, very close to him, probably about 30 feet from him. And the Viet Cong was that close to him. And so it killed about half of them. The rest of them turned around and ran back. So then I went on emergency frequency, ordered a helicopter. Mayday, mayday, you know, we have downed aircraft. And so they came in about 20 minutes later and picked him up. Oh, I think the satisfied time definitely was when I was in Vietnam. It was the most exciting, most, the missions we flew, particularly the one I mentioned, were certainly exciting and gratifying. But we had, on our base, we had 60 airplanes. And during the year I was there, we lost 22 of them. Now, they kept replacing them, but we always had about 60. We had 3 squadrons of 20 each. And of course, some of those resulted in the loss of the pilots, which were our dear friends. And but the flying game is a dangerous game, especially when you're in combat. So I think we accepted it, but it was still sad to lose a friend.
Now and forever I am the guard. I fought at Normandy and in Korean skies. I heard the battle call. I flew the missions to keep peace around the world, so freedom could reign for all. So raise the flag I love, and this to you I